Phillies on top.
But this club just does not die.
He's under it. He's got it. And the game is over. Hoskins swung on, crushed, and the Phillies are going to lead it 4-0. Just a towering fly ball to straightaway left. Schwarber was ready. Bryce Harper has put the Phillies on top.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Phrankly Phils Podcast. I am your host, Adam Mack. We have some exciting news actually here at the AT Sports. So the Phrankly Phils Podcast is actually expanding. We're going to be doing two different shows now, twice a week. Tuesday nights we'll still have Phrankly Phils, where we talk primarily on the Phillies, what's going on in the major leagues. And then on Sundays we'll be doing the Max Minor Report. Let you guys kind of know what is going on in the Phillies minor league farm system from low A rookie ball all the way up to triple A. See what's going on with some of the top Phillies prospects, kind of give my input on some of those guys that I think, should be getting promoted, demoted, called up to the big leagues, getting that call to the show. But as always on Tuesdays, it is all about the Phillies. So we're going to keep it going with the Phrankly Phils, talk about the Fightins. The question of the show, are we talking about the Fightins? And we absolutely are. They just finished off one of probably their best stretch of games that we've seen all season long. We'll just kind of go through it since we kind of last met. So obviously we just came off the 3-game sweep of the Oakland A's. We took 3 of 4 from the Diamondbacks, kind of series that most people aren't giving them enough credit for right now. We took 3 of 4 games from the NL West leading Arizona Diamondbacks. Looking at those games, the 9-8 loss ultimately was a pitcher's battle. It was that big game we kind of talked to about the fifth starter. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But it was that fifth starter game, the game where we know we need to put up a lot of runs. Unfortunately, our offense just came up short. Our offense looked really, really good. Put up 8 runs in that game. But ultimately, that fifth starter game, like we all know, is going to be a weakness for this club, and we'll get into the fifth starter towards the end of that show. They took 4-3, won 4-3 the next day, 5-4, 15-3. The offense really, really came together. The Phillies, they found ways to win. Arizona has a lot of really good pitchers this year, so the offense struggled a little bit, but the offense showed you how deep they really are. Looking at that lineup, Schwarber, really has found his home back as the leadoff hitter for the Phillies. So keeping him at that leadoff, he's really excelled. Trey Turner's really starting to come together. He's batting over 300 in the month of June. Then you obviously have Harper, who we all know is, a stud. He's in a little bit of a slump right now, but, of all the Phillies, he's the one player I'm not concerned about. And then, Alec Bohm returned from injury and really has, stepped kind of up to play a little bit more. Bryson Stott, we already know, is a future Silver Slugger, future batting champ. Himself, and then Brandon Marsh obviously is turned into a really reliable bat. But there's been a lot of other Phillies hitters that I think have really kind of come together. Armando Sosa is was obviously originally hired or traded for to be a defensive player. He's really kind of come together as kind of a really reliable bat. He's not an everyday player at this point. He's kind of playing around 60 to 75% of the games. With the addition of Cody Clemens into the lineup. And it's kind of real big that Cody Clemens, he won the first base job now. I'm really excited to kind of see what he's able to do. But overall, the Phillies offense, really shows you 1 through 9 it's really, really deadly. Even if one guy goes in a little bit of slump, like, Harper was in a slump for the last, 3 or 4 games, and no one really talks about it because the rest of the offense really, really stepped up between, Schwarber and Stott and Bohm and Turner and Castellanos. We didn't even notice that Harper was in a slump because the rest of the offense has really, really picked up. So, the offense really kind of started off slow, but I think the Phillies offense really doesn't get enough credit, in this grand scheme of things. The offense has been really, really solid. I don't believe they've been shut out at all. There's that 1 game, 2, 3, and especially the second half of last month and a half, they've only been shut out one game of the season. So, the Phillies offense really, really has come together. Both a good mix of power and, contact. So, when guys kind of, slump a little bit, if a guy goes down with injury, it sucks obviously, but, it shows you the depth we have on this team. And there's even guys on the bench that can kind of step in every other day and kind of turn into a really reliable back. Garrett Stubbs, even though he's not going to hit the ball very well, he's really, really good at bunting the ball. So, I'm really excited to kind of keep watching the rest of these guys kind of keep playing. So the offense is really, really taking steps, and then we got to turn to the pitching. The start of the year, the pitching was the clear Achilles heel for the team. Wheeler and Nola they didn't look sharp. Ranger Suarez was down with injury. Taijuan Walker at the first couple of starts really, really struggled. So there's a lot of question marks coming around that starting rotation for the club. But kind of since then, Wheeler's turned into an ace. He's getting to that level of being unhittable where Wheeler steps up to the mound. I'm confident to say the Phillies are going to be probably going to win that game. That's how good right now Zach Wheeler's been playing. Obviously aces are rare in this league. I'm willing to say right now that Zach Wheeler's an ace in this league right now. When you look at Aaron Nola, a lot of different people have their opinions on him. I have my opinion on him. He's a free agent at the end of this year. He wants a $200 million contract. If he keeps playing at the level he's playing, he's going to earn that $200 million contract. If he keeps playing like this, I would love the Phillies to re-sign him. The big question marks around Aaron Nola have always been his consistency. We know he's a great pitcher. We know he's one of the top end pitchers in Major League Baseball. However, when he's not on, when he can't settle in, when he goes from the stretch, he turns into one of the worst pitchers in Major League Baseball. So, we really need to he needs to kind of really figure out what he's going to do in the next few months. But if he keeps pitching at this kind of high level, giving us 6-7 innings, only giving up a run or two, he's going to earn that $200 million contract, and he's going to have a really, really good rest of this season. So keep going down that rotation. Ranger Suarez, I think, is probably the most consistent pitcher. Going into the season, even before the injury, Ranger wasn't a guy to go, 7-8 innings, not even 9 innings. He's always been that guy to get you probably to that 5th inning mark. But he really always did a good job of getting you that 5th inning, putting the team in good position, striking out a lot of guys, not giving up a lot of runs, giving up some hits, but never giving up runs. He's been the best pitcher for the Phillies this year, and he's going a little bit later into games. I know there's a lot of, complaining for Rob Thompson pulling Suarez tonight after 6 innings when he was pitching phenomenally. I'm happy with that move. Obviously still coming back from injury. He went 8 innings his last start. A lot of it has to do with pitch counts. Is even though he doesn't go that many innings, Ranger does throw a lot of pitches in his outings. He likes to work the counts a lot. So even though Ranger got pulled at 6, I'm not upset about it. I would love for every pitcher to go 9 innings in every single start, but ultimately if we do throw him 9 innings, try to push him to his max in end of June, by the time we get to end of September, mid-October, early November, their arms are going to be gassed. So I think Rob Thompson really in this situation is really looking long-term for Ranger. And I'd much rather, have him go late into November than, have his arm go out mid-September. So I ultimately think that's kind of the move. Then Taijuan Walker, struggled his first couple starts, but he's really come together. He's a guy that's, was barely getting to the 5th inning, sometimes getting pulled in the 4th. He's a guy now that's going to be able to go 7-8 innings, and he kind of flirt a little bit with the 9th inning. Everyone was kind of complaining with that contract, but Taijuan Walker's really turned into a reliable pitcher for us. He really is showing you why we signed him to that, that giant contract. So I'm excited. I think right now with those Phillies 4 pitchers, we have a really good rotation in place and a really good mix of, fastball pitchers versus guys that are really going to work the zone a lot. With guys like Ranger Suarez. So I think right now the Phillies, obviously the hitting's coming kind of look at the rotation before we get into that fifth starter spot. Looking at the bullpen, we have a lot of depth at the bullpen right now. Obviously, Alvarado returned from injury. Yunor Marte, he's been bouncing back and forth between AAA, Lehigh Valley, and the major leagues with the Phillies. I know it's only a small sample size, but he has looked a lot better in his current stint with the Phillies. Every time he's been optioned down to AAA, he's pitched really, really good. He's trying to kind of get over that hump in the MLB. Got his first career save against the Athletics. But he really has come together. I really like what he's been able to do, and I'm excited to kind of see him continue to grow. Guys like Craig Kimbrell, he's having a stretch of games where he looks like Craig Kimbrell when he was on the Red Sox. A really young, one of the best closers in baseball. Gregory Soto, he's not as great as we were hoping for out of him right now, but ultimately he's still pitching fairly very well. So, the bullpen's coming together. They have a lot of depth. You still have Andrew Bellotti, Connor Brogdon, Bailey Falter still down AAA. You have a lot of options for that relief pitchers. And I think right now we're still trying to figure out what's the best bullpen, what's the best rotation for that bullpen right now. So, the bullpen, I think it's going to take a while to figure out what the best course of action is. But the really good thing for the Phillies bullpen, and we haven't been able to say this in a long time for this bullpen, Phillies have a lot of options. And they don't just have a lot of options on the current team. They have a lot of options in AAA right now. So I'm excited. There's still guys like McKinley Moore that could possibly get another stint. So, even if guys go down, it sucks. If it was Sir Anthony right now, I think right now Phillies have a lot of really good options. All right. So obviously the biggest weakness when it comes to the Phillies is going to be that fifth starter spot. For the entire season, the Phillies have been throwing whatever they could possibly imagine out as the fifth starter, and ultimately every 5 games have just taken a giant loss. Championship teams can't do that. We all know that. It's obvious. The Phillies need a fifth starter. And ultimately, there's no one internal that's going to win that job. Matt Strahm, for a while, was the best pitcher for the Phillies. Ultimately, he's a bullpen guy. He's a guy that I want to bring in if, things go south for the starter. Matt Strahm can be the guy every 5 days, maybe go 2-3 innings in those games. But ultimately, I think there's one option for internally, and that's going to be Christopher Sanchez. Just looking at his stats, so let's go to his AAA stats to start. So in AAA this year, obviously he started the season off hurt, was moved, did his rehab assignments, got to AAA, kind of stayed there after his assignments. So he's pitched in 10 games, started 8 of them, 3-2 with a 4.35 ERA, 49 2/3 innings, 43 hits, 24 runs, 24 earned runs, 6 home runs, 4 hit by pitches, 29 walks, 44 strikeouts, and has an opponent average of 229. Pretty good stats for him in AAA. Had a couple rough starts here and there. I saw him pitch once where he had a perfect game going through 4 innings, got to the 5th inning, gave up a hit, worked from the stretch, and just could never recover from that. But when he was on and when he was focused, Christopher Sanchez was as unhittable as you can imagine down in AAA. He just needed to work on a lot of stuff settling in, kind of calming his nerves down, working out of jams. A lot of the kind of same issues that Aaron Nola and Taijuan Walker have. But, obviously he had the latest opportunity to get a start, but he won 4 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts against the Athletics on Saturday. Absolutely brilliant performance. Don't care what you say about the level of competition. For him, my kind of thing is for that 5th starter. My goal is for them to get to the 4th or 5th inning. If they can get longer, get to the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, that's great, awesome. But ultimately, I know those games are going to be bullpen games. I know we're going to call to the pen early in those games. The big thing is just having those players put the Phillies in a position to win. That might be a good opportunity for a guy like, have Christopher Sanchez go 5 innings, bring Matt Strahm in for 2 innings, and then hand the ball over to your closer. But ultimately, looking at it, Christopher Sanchez has earned that job. He's the best pitcher in AAA this year for the club. And right now he's earned that opportunity in my opinion. He has MLB experience. He's looked sharp in AAA. I don't think the Phillies need to make a trade right now for a fifth starter. They really don't need to make a trade. Christopher Sanchez, I think, has earned that opportunity. I know it's a small sample size. I know, there's high expectations to be a pitcher in Major League Baseball, but at the end of the day, he's a fifth starter. He's not our ace. He's not our number 2. He's not our number 3. He's a fifth starter. When it comes time to the playoffs, we might not have a 5-man rotation. We might do a 4-man rotation. And he might be a guy that, has long relief appearances. But, for the regular season, he's our fifth starter and he's going to do, I think, exactly what he needs to do. Get to the 5th inning, put the team in a position to win, and then we can hand the ball over to the bullpen. So I think right now, Christopher Sanchez should be that guy. He should get that call. I'm not sure if the Phillies have even announced starters for the next few games, but yeah. So looking ahead to kind of the Phillies rotation, it looks like Sanchez has won that job actually. So Friday, they'll play the Mets. He's starting, and then on the 29th of June against the Cubs, he's going to be starting that game. So, I think Sanchez is the right guy for the position. Right now the Phillies don't have a deep prospect pool. They don't have a lot of capital to trade away, especially for some of the pitcher names that are on the market right now. But I really think Christopher Sanchez is that guy. I really think we should all kind of rally around him. Looking at all the kind of other options, like Dylan Covey is not going to be the guy. I think once Sir Anthony comes back, Covey's gone. And that kind of brings us to the next point. There's been a lot of discussion. Once Andrew Painter is ready, is he the guy? Is he going to immediately get called up to the MLB? There's a lot of talk that he was in contention for that fifth starter spot to begin in the year. He started bullpen sessions. I really think if Christopher Sanchez keeps playing well, you hold off on Andrew Painter for the next year. Let him really get back into the swing of things, really kind of hone in those mechanics. I really think we'll see Andrew Painter next year. I don't think Andrew Painter is going to be MLB ready by the end of this year, especially with the injury kind of derailing that. I really think the Phillies should keep with Christopher Sanchez. Obviously bearing any injuries to any of the other starters or him. But right now, just what he's been able to do, he looked incredible. Maybe he should have gone an extra inning against the Athletics. Probably would have done really, really well. I just really think with Christopher Sanchez, he's a young guy, has a lot of upside. And what he's been able to do in AAA has been absolutely incredible. Sometimes when you look at the stats, you go, this guy isn't really solid. But there's been multiple starts that he's taken games into the 3rd, 4th inning without giving up a hit. A couple of times he's been perfect through 3 or 4 innings. So he really has been solid. He's not a guy that's going to go 8, 9 innings. For a pitcher to go, look, not very often you see a pitcher go 8, 9 innings this early in the season. Still, towards the end of June, still pretty early in the season. And if we want to keep playing until end of October, early November, we can't be throwing our pitchers every 8, 9 innings. Especially for Christopher Sanchez, he's a guy who's coming off an injury. He's only 26, fairly young pitcher. Pitchers don't usually hit their primes till 29. Last thing we want to do is throw out his arm, and then he gets to, November, and his arm is toast. We saw it last year in the playoffs last year. Our pitching lost their energy and lost their juice by the time we hit the World Series. So, I think Rob Thompson is really looking long term. Why is he going to pitch everybody as long as he can now when come November, his pitchers are going to have no more energy in the tank? So I think a lot of this is Rob Thompson looking more long term. What can we do to set ourselves up for success come November? Having our pitchers not be exhausted by November is going to win this team a World Series. Pulling Ranger Suarez at 6 innings was the right decision. Pulling Christopher Sanchez after 4 innings is the right decision. Rob Thompson's not been perfect, but he's definitely looking more long-term. And if you don't look long-term with this team that has World Series aspirations, you're going to crumble. So I think that's why you go Christopher Sanchez at the fifth starter. He's been proven at AAA this year. He's come in his first game in Major League and the MLB stint this year. Was almost unhittable. And we just got to realize for those games, that's when the bullpen, another guy in the bullpen might not need to go 2 or 3 innings. That might be the day even that Matt Stram steps up, goes 2 more innings. So, you have 6 innings worth of pitching from right between those two guys. Maybe Matt Stram goes 3. Maybe Matt Stram goes 4 and Christopher Sanchez goes 4. Maybe it's 3 and 3. But I think for those games, the bullpen needs to understand that they're going to play a part in it. We're not going to expect Christopher Sanchez to go 9 innings. We're not going to expect him to go 8 innings. For those games, you're going to need guys like Yurner Marte, Jeff Hoffman, Matt Stram to understand that they're probably going to have to pitch 1 or 2 innings. Then we can go to our setup guys like Gregory Soto, Craig Kimbrell, Jose Alvarado. Then they can come in 8th, 9th inning, close the games out. But they're not going to be like Zach Wheeler or Aaron Nola that can give you 9 innings. That's just not who they are. And ultimately, the Phillies are looking long-term right now. So, what I think now, would I have loved to see Ranger keep going to beat the Braves? Absolutely. But ultimately, Ranger knew his role, and he knew that there's a long season. He's a guy that's still recovering from an injury. He's only been back for a month. So, you can harp on the Rob Thompson decision to pull Ranger. You could harp on Rob Thompson pulling Christopher Sanchez. But ultimately, I think he's looking a lot more long-term for the club. And just kind of finishing up, like I said, the draft, the trade deadline obviously is looming just a little over a month away. Looking at with the Phillies, I think the Phillies aren't going to probably address any major positions. We're not looking for any starters. There really isn't, like I said earlier, the only position that people could possibly want to look at is the first base. And I'll mention the Paul Goldschmidt thing. Yeah, would I love to add the reigning NL MVP to our lineup? Yeah, he's still one of the best first basemen in all of baseball. Still one of the best hitters in all of baseball. Would absolutely love to add him. But what are we going to give up? If we can get away with not giving up one of the top 3 prospects, okay. Even if it involves, me, Mick Abel or Griff McGarry, it might still be worth it. But I'm really been excited about Cody Clemens. I really think he's come together. He's really turned into a really good defensive first baseman. He's turned into a really good, reliable hitter for the Phillies lineup. If you would have asked me this in April and May, I would have been like, absolutely get Cody Clemens out of here. The more I watch him play, he looks so much more confident. He's obviously been working out a lot with Kevin Long. I really think Cody Clemens should be that first baseman in the future for the team. I really believe what he's been able to do so far kind of this season, just looking at some of his stats. I can pull it up real quick. He's batting .248, 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, 703 OPS. Again, he's not an all-star first baseman. He's not a gold glove first baseman, not a silver slugger first baseman. But he does fit in really, really well into this lineup. And he really has kind of come together as a hitter. So I'm going to look at some of just his recent games. It's not, we got to look kind of also long-term with this Paul Goldschmidt thing. Is it worth trading Andrew Painter? I don't think it is. But also, is Andrew Painter actually going to be that good? He's tore up the minor leagues, don't get me wrong. But there's no guarantee. He's only 19 years old. We've seen a lot of pitchers who enter the MLB for a couple years have a really good short stint, and they're one of the best, if not the best pitchers. Tim Lincecum, Jacob deGrom. These guys have a 5-6 year stretch, but then they throw their arms out and they're just completely injury derailed. That very well could be in Andrew Painter's future. So, part of me is also thinking Andrew Painter, there's no guarantees. There's a lot of guarantees with Paul Goldschmidt. But right now, I'm not making that trade. If for some reason St. Louis doesn't want Andrew Painter, doesn't want Mick Abel, doesn't want Griff McGarry, they maybe want like Hei-Yu Lee, Gabriel Cones, Andrew Baker, one of the middle Phillies prospects. All right, and I'm willing to part with that. Even some of the higher guys, Justin Crawford, Simone Muzziotti, Carlos De La Cruz. a lot of different guys are having solid seasons. But right now, I don't think the Phillies have an issue at first base. I still think they could probably upgrade the pitching. Um, as much as I just kind of hyped up Christopher Sanchez, um, there are better options for the fifth starter position out there. Um, Guys that might be able to give you 5, 6 innings, 7 innings, could possibly jump and be a third starter. We don't need to look just for a fifth starter. We could look for a guy that could be a number 2, number 3, kind of balance out the rotation a little bit. Shane Bieber from Cleveland has been a name that's been bouncing around. I've been mentioning Corbin Burns from Milwaukee. These guys aren't even rentals that are under contract till the end of 2024. So a lot of different guys that we could, not just use for the season, but they could also go for next year. So I'm excited. I think, the Phillies have options. I think ultimately what they're going to probably do, they'll probably end up trading for another starter. As much as I love Christopher Sanchez, I think ultimately they're going to move him back to the bullpen, kind of be like a Matt Stram and give 2 or 3 innings in case of emergency, in case a pitcher really falls off the face of the planet. And I think they'll probably look to update their bench. They have really no depth. I've not been a fan of Josh Harrison this year. I think an opportunity to move on from him, get some more bench pieces. We saw what Amundo Sosa did last year for the club. We saw what Brandon Marsh was able to do for the club, in the postseason. So I think getting some more bench pieces to really balance out the entire roster, I think is probably going to be the move. I don't expect the Phillies to be in contention for some of these bigger name guys. I really think they're going to focus more on the bench pieces. So that's kind of the big focus for the Phillies right now. But man, Fightins are back. We're talking about the Fightins here. Obviously, right now, I believe they're about to lose this game. Whatever. They're about to lose tonight. This is like we said, it's a 16-game stretch. It's a really, really tough stretch of games. We're about to be 6-2 to start this stretch of games. I was hoping we go 8-8. We're still only 1 game back in the wild card. It's still a long season, but really have started to turn it around. They're really starting to play better baseball. They're really all found their roles. The Fightins are back. There's no question about it. I'm excited to see the rest of the season, but we are talking about the Fightins. Awesome. Like I said, the Phrankly Phils is expanding. We are a new show now. Not going to be as long of episodes, about 20 to 30 minutes now. But every Tuesday is the Phrankly Phils Podcast. We talk about the Fightins, and then every Sunday night we'll be talking about Max Minor's report, letting you know what's going on with the Phillies minor league teams from AA, AAA, Low A, Single A, all those fun stuff. So make sure you tune in on Sunday. As always, I'm your host, Adam Mack, and we will see you Sunday night.